I am Jonathan Kiefer, the writer and associate producer of Around the Sun.
And I'm Oliver Krimpas, the director, producer, and editor of Around the Sun.
So, we have some questions.
Okay.
I'll start. What was the biggest challenge to working with someone living in a different country? This question could apply to both of us, actually.
Yeah.
You go first.
Well, I think it's actually the answer's in the question, is that we're in different countries, and it's, despite Skype and FaceTime and all that, the value of being in the same room as someone and just being able to sit down with a cup of coffee and chew the fat and discuss things is something that I think is central to a collaborative relationship on film, and we didn't have that. So it was that I find that distance quite detaching. So that was a big challenge.
There are many time zones between us. I live in Northern
too.
California, and Oliver lives in London, and so it's about 5 hours.
8.
No, 8 hours.
8 hours, yeah.
It's 5 hours just to get to the other side of the United States, and then 3 more to get to London. And sometimes it was okay because one of us could be going to bed and leave a message for the other one, and then we could sort of work it into our schedules. But yeah.
But then you'd have something pressing. I'd wake up in the morning and get a pressing email that John had sent just before his, and he'd just be going to bed. And then I'd have to wait till 5 p.m. my time.
Momentum is a very important part of filmmaking, and
so it does break it up. But that said, the joys of modern technology have really smoothed that way, and we could Skype and we could FaceTime and we could send me a lot of email. And it also actually sometimes the time difference is quite nice because you go, oh God, I've got to do that to fulfill my obligation to this particular part of the process, and but at least I've got till 4 p.m. before he wakes up, and you have time to really think about something, and when I was editing, for instance, I'd cut something, upload it, and then John would have quite a few hours to sort of digest it and give me notes on that part of it.
Another flip side of being far apart geographically and working, the countries are far apart, but it's exciting to be able to go to London and then to France to make a film. For me, any trip to Europe is a good time. We had known each other for many years, and so to be working on a project together of this scope was a great thrill to begin with. And then it's just made a little more of an adventure because of the fact that it requires international travel. So that makes it fun as well. It was challenging, but that also makes it fun and exciting. Would you like to?
Oh, okay, yeah, right. What was the biggest challenge you faced in bringing in your vision to the big screen?
The biggest challenge I faced in bringing my vision to the big screen was that Oliver had to direct it. No, I think
money, right?
Yeah. It's
money is probably the toughest thing.
It really is, because we have different ideas about how to make movies and about how to make this movie, and that's all normal and that's all healthy and exciting. And then you bring other collaborators in, including the cast, and the thing starts to take shape. And there are challenges just in terms of practical stuff, like how do you get a movie out of a script, and how do you get a script out of, in this case, a place and an idea and a book that we adapted. The biggest challenge, I think, is just sort of finding the resources to do it, and that kind of boils down to a financial question.
It is ultimately a number.
Yeah.
And that number, you can try and make that number as small as possible, but then of course that brings with it various other constraints. So you need to find collaborators who are willing to work at that budget level. I was actually surprised because when we decided kind of where we were going to hit in terms of the level of production complexity, and then that translated into a budget. I was surprised, even with our low number, how tricky it was to raise the money.
There's also an issue of momentum, which I think I mentioned earlier, that you have to sort of keep the pressure on. It feels like, a little bit like Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill that's always going to keep rolling back down on you, or just that you need sort of a constant effort. And there's always a feeling in the back of your mind that we're the only people who really care about this thing, and the rest of the world doesn't even know about it and doesn't necessarily need to care about it. So it's up to us to make something that's worth it to them to sort of become interested in, and eventually as a movie to come watch and hopefully enjoy, and then tell their friends about. And so that pressure of knowing that it's more important to you than it is to anyone else, and keeping it going and helping each other sort of get to the finish line. That's a pretty significant challenge, I think. But also, that's also kind of what it's all about. And now that we're here talking about it in an interview about a finished movie that's been showing at a festival, it feels pretty good. So.
Yeah, keeping the flame, the thing that motivated you to make it to begin with, keeping that going in your head and pushing through all the layers, and then at some point it kind of semi-hits critical mass, and then that's where you have to just get it over the line. And we had a couple of false starts on this film, so that was a bit dispiriting. But we're here now, so I guess we made it through.
Will there be a blooper reel when you release the film as a DVD? I don't know. I'm curious to know.
I've already actually started cutting it.
Okay.
And so yes, we don't have that much great blooper material, but we
might. This interview could be a blooper waiting to happen or happening.
We're yes, but I need to make sure that the actors are happy with what we use, because there's quite a lot of profanity, which we might bleep out for comedy effect. But I hope so.
Okay.
Another one? Right, okay. How did you, actually there's a typo here, but how did you cast the roles of Maggie and Bernard?
It was very easy for me to do because I just gave it over to you and you did it.
Yes.
How did you cast it?
How did I cast it? Well, I had the, in order to, when we first started, our first sort of unsuccessful attempt at making the film, for other reasons, but casting was a main part of it. I thought I will just start talking to agents on my own directly, and this was financially an interesting approach, because I didn't need to worry about a casting director, but actually it was a bit of a dumb move, because there's a certain level of credibility that the imprimatur of having a casting director bestows on you as a production, and we didn't have that without it. So I approached various people, actors I knew. I knew quite a few actors who put me in touch with other actors, and we needed people of a certain age, so they couldn't quite be newbies, and they needed to have quite a lot of experience to be able to carry off the enormous amount of dialogue that we had in the film. So I started meeting with actors and doing auditions, and then eventually, when we realised we got a casting director who was really interested in the film and loved it, and she just gave me a whole load of suggestions, and then it was just a case of finding a right fit, and then it was weird, because paradoxically we've only got 2 actors, and yet when you're finding 2 actors who are on screen the whole film, both of them, there really is nowhere to hide. So they have to be not only amazingly good, but very technically strong as well, and then also they have to have a good relationship together. So that took a long time. That was a challenge. And of the 2 that we ended up casting, Cara came in a good 2 or 3 months before we started filming, and we were really struggling. I'd auditioned Gethin beforehand, and then he got booked, so I couldn't put them in a room together, and we thought he was unavailable, and so we went down a rabbit hole of auditioning various other actors, and none were quite right, and it was getting closer and closer to our deadline, really, where we were going to run out of daylight hours, because it was getting into winter, and it was just going to be, the days were going to be too short. And then we cast someone who dropped out, and then Gethin came in. We realised Gethin was available at the very last minute. Amazingly, he and Cara knew each other, and they had really good chemistry, and it was about 10 days before we started shooting that he was cast.
Yeah, and they
hit it off immediately.
They did, yeah. They had that spark, which was important. Oliver sent me video of people reading for the parts, and it was really exciting to see that because they're English, so they have the accents, and it's like, oh, they sound nice speaking my words, but also you got to see actors working, which is an exciting part of filmmaking, and you could see the wheels turning and how people interpreted the material and how Oliver was interacting with them, and seeing the roles come to life. And then as he said, Cara was on board pretty early, and she's great. You could tell right away. And then when Gethin came in, it was a relief, but also just a real delight, because we knew we had something, and then full steam ahead. Another one. How long did it take to film, and how big was the crew?
We filmed for 16 days over 3 weeks, and the crew was 12 or 13, I can't remember. I think it was 13 all in.
Yeah,
and that's including the actors.
Big enough to fit around a single banquet table in the place we were staying. But a small crew, and
the limitation actually ended up being how many people we could fit in the accommodation available.
Yeah.
So, without having to then rent, because we were in the middle of rural France, so it was a case of renting a holiday home, and then not having to rent another third holiday home. And then also if we could fit in the vehicles that we had at our disposal to get down to France, because we all came from the UK, apart from we had one young production assistant who came from Paris, and our catering lady was she was local, but everyone else we got into 4 vehicles, went on the Eurotunnel train, and from London.
A small crew, but in a nice way. It was very intimate. I mean, big-hearted, so they're big in that way. And I did several different jobs while we were on the set, and I think several other people did as well. There was a lot of everybody kind of chipping in to make it happen, and the days are long, and there's downtime, but there's a lot of busyness as well. So it was nice to feel the sort of community effort to kind of get it done. And I miss the crew. It's too bad they're not here with us, because it'd be nice to see them again. But it was a good group. Your turn.
My turn. Okay. If you were talking to an aspiring filmmaker, what 3 things would you tell them?
Something that I've heard a lot lately, and has started to become almost a bit of fashionable advice, for good reason, which is don't wait for permission to do the stuff you want to do. Get your friends together and figure out how to make something, and be making stuff, because if you're wanting to make stuff and not actually doing it, you don't quite know what it is. And obviously you don't have, when you're just starting out, you don't have the resources to articulate grand, complicated, expensive types of movie making. But that stuff is not necessarily the most important part of movie making anyway. It's about storytelling, and it's about basically, what makes it interesting to look at human beings on a screen, in my opinion. And there are a lot of ways that you can access that with very limited resources. And you need practice, because it is a craft. I think, I had a bit of fear of failure and fear of not achieving a certain degree of perfectionism, which for many years prevented me from actually really making anything at all. And that's a shame, because you learn by doing, and the experience that you have working with other people and collaborating is such an important part of it, and it gives you a boost that you need when things are rough. So yeah, just get out there and do it. That's really one thing. What are the other things? Maybe there are three things in that.
Yeah, I'd say almost all three things are that one thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Just go and make films. Go and make films. But I'd say if there was another thing, I would say if you want to be a filmmaker, immerse yourself in everything about life and art as much as you can.
Yeah.
Especially things that aren't film.
Right.
So live, go to galleries, go to concerts, read. Don't forget to read. It's very, very important. Yeah. Try and get your influences as much as possible from non-film sources.
I think that's very good advice. I think that you can tell when looking at films that are made by people who think that way. They tend to stand out, and think about what it is, why you want to do it, and that's where you can, I think, find those answers. What is it about life that captures your imagination or your spirit or your emotions, and life experiences. Everything is material, so
So make sure you're exposed to as much material as possible.
Yeah. Now here's a good one. How did you two meet?
We both.
It's a long time ago.
We both went to school at BU, Boston University. I was a master's student and John was an undergraduate. I was looking for a lead for my final film, my thesis film. And someone I knew had directed John in a production of Assassins by, who is it by?
Sondheim, the musical.
Oh, it is Sondheim, yeah, of course. He came and auditioned, and I cast him as the lead in my thesis film, and that's how we met.
Yeah, that was an important moment for me because I was young. I think I was still a freshman in college at that time. Maybe, I don't know, but
I think you were
going into my
sophomore. Yeah.
And yeah, I'd been acting on stage and was interested in film, and I think I knew at that time that I was going to pursue a major in film, which at BU, the program is very good there for undergraduates because they make you wait a couple of years. You spend the first couple of years not doing anything about film, which I think goes to what you were saying earlier about reading and paying attention to other things and sort of accumulating some life experience before you get your hands on the equipment and start making movies. So yeah, I was interested in the idea of film as a major and as a vocation, I guess, and being in Oliver's film was exciting because it was the first real glimpse of what it's actually like and the sort of magic that happens when you are on a set and there's all these people working together to do make-believe in a collaborative way, which is really sweet and it's really touching, and it's to be an actor, I felt like I was fairly pampered, which is nice, but I also felt like everybody was there to have a good time and to make something creatively that we could all be proud of, and just the sort of artifice of it, where you're acting with someone else and there's lights in your face and there's camera gear moving around, and just on the other side of the frame there's this whole apparatus that's making this illusion, but the audience isn't going to see that, but you know that it's there. There's something very interesting to me about that, and so it was very exciting.
Sometimes inches from your face.
Yeah, right.
Just out of the frame line.
And so you get an appreciation of how complicated it can be and how much work goes into it, and the passion that is required. I definitely got the bug when that happened. And then we sort of went our separate ways. We did other things. I have worked as a journalist for a long time. We had families. Oliver's in London. I was in San Francisco. At some point I was traveling with my family to England, and we got back in touch, and then for a couple of years I think we had talked about making a feature because neither of us had done that, and so we made it happen, and here we are.
Yeah. Another one?
Yours.
Where is your film going to be shown next? Shall I answer this?
Please.
So we're booked in the main film festival is it Waterville?
I believe so, yeah. The main international film festival.
In July of this year, and that's all we have booked. But we're being considered by a number of festivals in the US and elsewhere, and that's it for now.
Yeah, and stay tuned.
Yes. And in fact, on that point, could I say we have a lot of social media links that maybe whoever is editing this video can put them up on screen, and then people can follow those channels, and they'll know when the next screenings are.
Yeah, it's a big help to tune into our social media stuff for these little indie films, especially because then for us it feels like we're sort of building a community with the movie, and then we can really sort of connect with the audience, and that means a lot. You know, we've had people who have seen the film now at the festival here in Cleveland, and people who've been sort of following along, who know us or know the actors, and who have helped us sort of build the excitement about the movie. And yeah, it's that really means a lot, and it's a good way to sort of stay in touch with the community and let everyone know about what's next. And sometimes having that kind of support helps to create those possibilities of what could be next. So that would be nice. Go ahead.
I think this is probably a good one to end on. What drew you to filmmaking, writing, directing, and producing?
Yeah. Let me go first. What drew me to it? I think, well, as I was saying earlier, being in Oliver's thesis film at our university was a sort of important crossing of a threshold into realizing what it is, and that there is real magic there, but it's also sort of handmade magic. It's people working together in a collaborative way that to make something special and creative, and ultimately ephemeral. I mean, film is such a strange thing. You sit down in the dark with a group of strangers. Ideally, you could also do it in your living room or on your phone. That's all okay with me. And you have this experience over the course of time with images and sound, and it moves you emotionally and maybe stirs your imagination. And I think that cinema kind of combines all the other arts in a way that is very special and inspiring just in and of itself. I don't know how I sort of got into my system to want to be part of that early on. I mean, of course, I think I started with books, and I love books, and I still love reading. I love reading to my children. I especially like picture books because there's something very cinematic about them, and the synthesis of words and images is always something very important to me. And just something about storytelling that never goes out of style and always is a balm for the soul in troubled times or in good times. And once you've had a little bit of experience being part of that and meeting people who are part of that, it's contagious, I think. And I'll do it for the rest of my life. I was going to say, with any luck, but even if you don't have luck, you got to keep going anyway. So
yeah,
that's
exactly.
Yeah.
From my point of view, I initially approached movies and cinema as a film fan, first and foremost, and it goes back to earliest memories. In fact, a memory I only kind of hazily have is of being at a birthday party of my own, maybe age 5 or 6. And kind of sneaking away from the birthday party and going and watching a film, which I think I've kind of pieced together the fractions, the little fragments of memory that I have of that. And it was in black and white. I think it was Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth. And my mum came in and turned off the TV so I could go and say goodbye to all my friends who'd schlepped out to this party to be there. And I don't think I had that one epiphany moment where I could sort of stroke my chin and say it was the first time I saw Battleship Potemkin or something. I didn't have that one epiphany moment, but it was sort of the accretion of all those the emotional memory of watching films, primarily in the cinema, even though that earliest one was on TV, but primarily in the cinema, and that feeling, that incredible excitement of going to the cinema and watching a film. But I never imagined for a million years until I was a student that I could actually make these things. Because I grew up in Athens in Greece, and the concept of making films I come from my father's an academic, I come from quite a serious family. But the idea of making films just seemed like something that somebody else would do. And then at university, my undergraduate university just bored out of my mind doing the degree that I was doing. I started, I realised I was just spending all my time in the movies, and I just thought, well, why don't I give this a crack? And started applying to film schools and actually got a job, a kind of lowly job in the film business in London for a while. I loved it, hung out on some sets, and then went to film school to learn sort of the nuts and bolts of filmmaking. And once you do it, if it's in your blood, and once you do it and you have the taste, you can't stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's as much a compulsion as anything else now. So yes, it's a sort of visceral sense of, I don't know, but I have to do this, whether people will watch it or not, or I'll achieve any success or not. I've just got to keep doing this.
I found that I learned about the world through cinema in a very meaningful way. I think Roger Ebert, said something about cinema as an empathy machine, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. That the idea being that you, by sort of experiencing other people's stories, whether fiction or not, it enlarges your capacity as a person to relate to other people. And I have definitely had that experience. I continue to have that experience. And that is really the core of what I love about cinema. And to be able to give that back is, that's a great privilege, and definitely something that I hope to do. You can travel the world in a movie theater, or again, on your laptop or whatever it is, and have all kinds of experiences, and discover that that we all as people have a lot in common, and there's a lot of depth to the human experience, and it's a great medium for exploring that. It's also a very private thing. You sit with an audience and watch a movie, but in the same way that reading a book is a very private thing, it's just you and the thing, and then it activates your imagination, and you take that away with you, and that's very special. And as Oliver suggested, once you've had a bit of that experience, you just sort of want to keep going with it. So hopefully we will.